Good morning or good afternoon or good night. I don't know, wherever you are. Welcome. It's nice to have you here. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and this is the Breaking Free Show. And I want to welcome Amnon, who is our producer today.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
How was your week?
It made me think for a
to it.
second. You did. I forgot. Today's Monday. Okay. So it depends upon when your week gets really started. Mine really gets started every day is a new week, just like it's a new day. So it's been great.
Good.
And yours? How's yours?
Mine's been fine. Just dandy.
Just dandy. Well, mine's been dandy too, and I want to hope and pray that everybody's week's been dandy and that you're getting a lot accomplished and you are being bodacious with everything that you're doing. So, you know, we love to do all kinds of things on our show. You never know what you're going to expect, and I don't either, really. So today the topic is forgiveness, and when we plan today, we just kind of randomly pick things, you know, that based on our guests' availability. It's not like we sometimes sit down and say, let's do this on this day, unless we do just a special topic. So today our guests were available, and how fitting that is, considering the fact that it is Martin Luther King's Day. So before I introduce my guest to you, I would very much like to read a quote in opening up today's show, and it's a Martin Luther quote, and it goes like this. We must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. He who is devoid of the power to forgive is devoid of the power to love. There is some good in the worst of us and some evil in the best of us. When we discover this, we are less prone to hate our enemies. Love that. And, you know, it's interesting because I often think when I'm going to the red light and why people ever beep when they go through the red light, how ridiculous that is, because at some point in time, they're going to be going through the red light too. So why even beep somebody else? But people do, so that's how it is. So let me introduce to you our guest today, and I'm really excited because we have people from two parts of the world, and that's very exciting because then you get to hear sometimes a different perspective, or sometimes how something is being done differently. But then again, when you take the word forgiveness, can it be done any differently than from the heart anyway? So my first guest, and I'm going to tell you who she is because it's very exciting. Her name is Shawne, and I'm going to read her last name so I don't make a mistake. Duperon. Now, I want to make sure I get it right because from now on I'm only saying Shawne. She is a 6-time Emmy Award-winning media coach and PhD candidate. Shawne has been in the TV business for nearly 20 years. She has taught thousands how to communicate as leaders, which I love, while networking and marketing in social and traditional media. Shawne works with corporations, entrepreneurs, universities, and government agencies across the globe. One of her personal passions is the work she does with multicultural groups to help delete media stereotypes through communication leadership. She spearheaded the movement on global forgiveness called Project Forgive, a 5-minute video that went viral without YouTube. Now, I want you to know I have it on my Breaking Free page and on my personal page and every page on Facebook I can put it, and LinkedIn. So check it out. You'll see it. And then my next guest, who's joining us from New Zealand, is Dean Leftus. And he is considered the forgiveness guy, which I think is also interesting, and we'll need to kind of find out what that's about. But Dean has been involved in helping himself and others get emotionally and spiritually free for nearly 30 years. He has helped people forgive on 4 continents and seen incredible healing and restoration occur in people's lives. His online forgiveness communities via Facebook reach people around the world daily, and he often counsels people he has never met via this medium. He lives with his wife in New Zealand, Fiji, and USA, and is heavily involved in working with the poor in Fiji. So let me welcome both of them to our show today. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. It's truly an honor to have you here because I know we're going to get into some really great stuff that's going to make a difference and impact all of us from now till eternity. So I want to start with Shawne. Ladies first. Shawne, welcome.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. So your project, can you give us some insight as to how that got started and how you got started into pushing forgiveness?
You know, That's a loaded question too. So, Marilyn, before we started, you said we can pretty much say anything. Right?
Anything you want.
Okay, good. So most people know that I'm an incest survivor. I share it pretty openly. And being at this stage in my life, being 50 years old, and being able to say that being molested was the best thing that's ever happened to me, some people will so get it and some people won't. And I love to describe it this way, that when I do my forgiveness work and I embrace everything that's happened to me, and it's really not even happened to me, it's happened for me. What's happened is I absolutely adore and love the person that I've become. So forgiveness is a theme in everything that I do. And what I've learned over the years is that forgiveness is a skill. It's a mastery of a skill. It's a way of being. That's one way to describe it, and there are many ways to describe it. And so in my business, I've always been in this realm of forgiveness. And then for those that have seen the video know that a dear friend of my family's died along with his children. And that was the catalyst for us starting an inquiry of what forgiveness really means to everybody individually, because it's so personalized. And then we started this little video, it went viral, and from there we started a foundation. It's been crazy fun, the catalyst for how this has evolved.
So, and I want to get to Dean, but I can't pass an opportunity with you, Shawne. So when you talk about forgiveness, do you believe forgiveness is something that you can, are you a forgiving person naturally, or is forgiveness something that you can learn and grow into?
You know, I think we're all forgiving by nature, but then it depends on the degree of the crime. Yeah, I can forgive you for stealing my job. I really wanted that job, and I'll get over it. But can I forgive you for getting drugs to my daughter who committed an overdose? So it's in degrees, and I think we're challenged with different things that happen to us in life, and that we learn and grow different levels of forgiveness, which to me, forgiveness equals love. We're loving by nature, and we're simply remembering who we are and mastering it through the skill of forgiveness. That's one of my takes on it. It's a complicated topic.
Sure it is. That's why we are here. And that's why the masters are here talking about it, because we really want to make a difference in the world, how people look at this, because as Shawne is saying, you know, anything that you go through is an opportunity. And so you take these situations, you know, whatever they are, and you use them as an opportunity to expand and grow yourself. And that's what we want to do. Dean, you're up. So, forgiveness, man. Tell us some personal things about you.
Some personal things about me.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm from New Zealand and spent a lot of time in Fiji now, working with the poor there, just trying to improve their lot as we can. But in terms of the whole forgiveness thing, I guess my journey's been one of understanding the need, firstly, to forgive myself. Shawne talked about the need to forgive other people when they wound you, but in my life I've had to learn to sort of take responsibility for forgiveness, if you like, and when I've screwed up, you know, something you won't know about me, I had my 18th birthday in jail, and that was sort of a culmination of becoming a bit of a rebel in my teens and being told I was a rebel, and I had to reach a point where I was able to forgive myself for screwing up and realizing that that wasn't who I was. You know, I wasn't a screw up, I was a person of value and had to learn to separate those things. And the other thing that I learnt very early on was that forgiveness was about me, not about the other person. When I was 10, my older brother died. He contracted bacterial meningitis and died very unexpectedly. And I blamed him for dying for years. And it wasn't until I was able to forgive him for dying that I started to get healing from the grief of his loss. And at the time it was quite strange because it's like, well, he's dead, you know, but it was me who needed the healing from forgiveness. It didn't matter the fact that he wasn't alive anymore. And in my work now, I find so often people will say, well, I'd love to forgive this person, but I have to go and find them, or I've tried to reconcile the relationship and they won't. And so I spend a lot of time explaining to them, well, forgiveness is about you getting free. The other person's response is almost irrelevant. You're the one who'll get healed if you move in that spirit.
Well said.
So there you go. There's two things you didn't know.
Yeah, right. Well said. And just like Shawne said, her theme, and I gather a theme of yours as well, is forgiveness, and mine is freedom. In everything I do, want to encourage people to experience their personal freedoms. So some of what you said, I wanted to start with you, Dean, and so when you talk about people freeing themselves, forgiving themselves, what, in your estimation, I mean, you were 18 years old, you're in jail, then you have the situation with your brother. Tell us how you begin that process of forgiving yourself. How do you do that?
Sure. Well, I guess the first thing is to actually understand as I've said already, that the reason to forgive at all is so that you can be, I would say, spiritually clean and emotionally clean. So you're not carrying around all of this baggage. And whether that baggage is self-imposed and that you think you're a bad person, or whether it's another person, or in many cases even God as you find him often gets blamed for lots of things. The first thing is to understand that if I harbor unforgiveness, if I hold a grudge, whether it's against myself or another person, I'm heading down a slope that will lead from hurt into bitterness, and then often leads into mental and physical illness. So step one is to acknowledge the fact that I'm hanging on to some baggage, and I have to find a way to let go of it. The specific journey for people is going to be different. Usually, in my experience, it involves them starting to both speak and also believe the truth about themselves, and that is that they are of value, that if they have done something that has gone badly or has caused an issue in their lives, that is not who they are. I'd refer to it as mislabeling. Like in my youth, I was always referred to as a lovable rogue. And so that was an identity, that I had, and I had to let go of that and recognise that actually I was a child of God. Some of my behaviour caused people to think I was a lovable rogue, and so I was able to forgive myself as I understood that some of the things that I had done were not who I am. Right. If that makes sense. Right.
Yes, it does. And so remember, listening to what he's saying, so it doesn't matter where you are to do this. And it really doesn't even matter when you do it, as long as you do it. So it doesn't matter whether the person is here or not here, or when you do it, as long as you access it. So now I want to ask Shawne, so in forgiveness, in your estimation, how does an individual start that process? And if there's some things that you want to add to it, you go right ahead.
Sure. So, we've interviewed thousands of experts across the globe doing this documentary. And consistently what we see is that we go through stages, depending on the level of the perpetration that came against you. So there is initially shock, there's anger, there's grief, there's acceptance, and then finally there's this place of forgiveness. You could meander through those 5, go back and forth, feel really good and accept it, and then 2 days later you're angry again. Like, let's say you lost your job, and at first you're so angry, you're shocked, then you're so angry at your boss, then you feel grief, and then you get a job interview the next day, and you're like, rock and roll. Some doors open and some doors close, and now I got this new job opportunity. You go on the interview, you don't get that one, and then you spiral back into the anger again, which is very common and typical. So there's these stages that everyone goes through, and they're not these static, linear experiences. And what I see over and over and over again, when you block emotions, when you block these emotions, that's what keeps you stagnant and not forgiving. And sometimes one of the things that I suggest to do, and I do it myself, if it's a toughie, if it's a real toughie, like maybe it's my mother-in-law who just drives me frickin' nuts, And it might simply be, can I forgive myself for not forgiving myself that she drives me nuts? And sometimes it's that first stage of even giving yourself permission to be angry. Because one of the things we learned doing the documentary is that we interviewed a bunch of 4-year-olds about forgiveness. It was pretty cool. And then I also asked them about anger. What is anger? And all of them, hands down, said anger was bad. And I thought, that's so interesting, because anger is just an emotion, and it's actually a critical component to forgiveness, to be able to allow yourself to be angry, to move through it. And that's what I see over and over again from interviewing people, from speaking a lot. Those are the few things that I see in a nutshell to round it out for you.
That's perfect. As you were sharing that, Shawne, I was thinking to myself, the opportunity to forgive. To give yourself the permission to forgive, because sometimes, we'll look at certain things in a control, wanting to control and not wanting to give up the anger, because if we give up the anger, we give up what happened to us. And that's not necessarily the case. And how you handle anger is also interesting. It doesn't, even forgiveness, I think sometimes you can still, maybe you are a little angry at somebody. It doesn't mean you can't forgive them for where they were or what they did or how that went down. So yeah. I think that's right. Would you say that?
Yeah, and look at Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. If they hadn't gotten angry for 10 years, they wouldn't have changed global laws
Absolutely.
on drinking and driving.
Right.
So what they did was phenomenal. We just have a tendency to shy away from anger because we think anger is bad. It's not Christian-like to be angry. And that's just not the case. If you think about it this way, like if someone laughs, that's a good thing to laugh. You're giggling. Now, if someone giggled all day long, we might think there's something wrong with their noggin. Is noggin a word you use in New Zealanding?
It sure is.
Now, okay, so like giggling, if I just laugh right now, it's no big shake. But if I laugh throughout this entire interview, you think I was very strange, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if someone gets mad at something, someone cuts you off on the road, and you have this whoosh of anger through you, it's appropriate. You got scared. You got pardon me, my earpiece fell out. You get mad, you get scared, and it's just this moment. It's just a puff of feeling. It's just emotion. Then you calm down like, oh, okay, well, that was annoying, but, maybe he needed to get somewhere. I'll forgive him. Blessings to him, right? And if I were angry all day long, that would be an issue. So sometimes we see things so black and white, and I believe anger is one of the most precious pieces of forgiveness to get you through what you need to get through. Because as an incest survivor, I went through some serious anger. And we have a hard time staying with anger because really anger is about grief. Underneath anger is grief. And if we don't deal with the anger, we're never going to get through the grief. And the grief is where the gold is. To move through something is to grieve your losses. And I'm not talking about suffering. Suffering is very different than feeling grief. It's the actual capacity to feel your grief, to be able to get to the stage of acceptance. And like I said, it's an ebb and flow that happens. And anger is such an important part to this.
Absolutely. And everybody's going to do it at their own pace. And I think,
absolutely.
And I think that's also important, is not to take on what somebody else says that you should already have been done. You have to do it at your own pace. When the light turns on for whatever stage turns on, you just take it as you come, because everybody's different. Everybody's opportunity for growth is different throughout all these stages that we're talking about. So it's very, very important.
I think
to
people
acknowledge
are often afraid of their emotions as well. I think in New Zealand and in some of the more Eastern cultures that I've been in, we tend to stuff our emotions down a lot more. And so one of the challenges I have is actually to get people to give themselves permission to either be angry or to be sad, to actually get in touch with their emotions. As Shawne says, unless you get to the root, and it's almost impossible to get to that without engaging emotionally, and I often in a large group setting will turn all of the lights off to give people permission to express their emotions without being embarrassed about the fact that they can be seen. And it's incredibly freeing for people because, as I say, especially in our culture in New Zealand, we stuff it all down and just, bury it all under the surface. And even though forgiveness is a choice, unless you get in touch with what's going on underneath, you'll never get any healing. You'll just get some cognitive behavioural change, but you'll never get healed.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good point, because I would imagine that from one end of the world to the other and from different cultures, it is quite different in the approach and how we handle emotion in general. So I think that's a really good point. And what you said before, Dean, about talking, that's another very important way of getting up the emotion, is having the freedom to talk, the freedom to share an experience, a fear with someone, so that you can, that for somebody could be one of the first stages in acknowledging and getting it up, is the freedom to share with a best friend, a mother, a sister, a father, whoever you can find to share your heart with, that you know will take care of it. And that's real important.
Yes, and even something like Project Forgive, I had no idea that Shawne and I were going to be on together, but I've read countless of the stories, because I'm often just looking at what's going on the net in that area. And even just being able to read about somebody else's pain and angst and journey is incredibly empowering for people to think, well, maybe I could talk about it as well. You know, I find, I forget who coined the phrase, but I use it a lot, that you're only as sick as your secret. And I think often we stuff everything down and we, hide it. And when we can actually tell somebody, even if it's in a blog, can be incredibly releasing and help people to start to engage themselves emotionally, which is a critical path to healing.
Shawne, and I think it's a cultural phenomenon that's going on too, because I'm so with you, Dean. The stuffing of feelings is an important piece. I've seen it everywhere we've done workshops, whether it's in Germany, whether it's in London, whether it's in Hyderabad in India, and particularly here in the U.S. We just stuff it in different ways. In the U.S., it looks like alcoholism, workaholism, overeating. So the stuffing of emotions, I'm seeing hands down across the board, is a human issue, and it just shows up a little bit differently in different cultures, and allowing those conversations to come up. And you can see it like in our popular music. Like right now, one of my favorite songs is Sarah Bareilles' Brave. Say what you want to say. Let the words fall out of your mouth. It's this conversation of vulnerability. You're seeing more and more conversations that vulnerable is strong. So it's shifting culturally and globally, which is exciting for me.
And when you just said that, Shawne, I got the chills. Yeah. Because I see it too, and I'm so glad that it's on so many dimensions. It's in movies, TV shows. I even love when I hear news broadcasters saying something that is so beyond what my history tells me about the news journalism. When they start talking like you. When traditional media is sharing things that are that beyond just the book. I love hearing it. So I'm so glad we're talking about it. So you see a shift, Shawne? You see a shift?
I do. And it's interesting because my background is media. I'm a media coach and communication leadership trainer. And I teach people how to get on TV and how to work with the media. And a lot of what I train around is that really there is no media, that it's us. That, you always hear in academia that the media sets the agenda or people set the agenda, and actually it's a combo of both. And what I'm loving about social media in particular is that we are Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. We've had the power all along. And if you notice, and new research is really showing this, that the positive, awesome, fabulous things that are happening in social media are because we're opening our mouths and being expressed, because it's a lot safer to do it sitting at your computer than it is to get in front of a camera with the media. So traditional media is following suit what's going on in social media, because the basic canons of traditional media is we want to share what's going on authentically in the world. So the more courage that we as individuals have sitting at our social media computers, the more you're going to see this in traditional media. So it's very exciting to see people having a voice and having it shared, because traditional media, CNN, shows like yours, Marilyn, they really want to share what people are talking about. That's the basic premise behind news, and that's what most journalists are committed to. I was a journalist for many, many years, and most of them are a lot like me. They're very loving, they're very kind, they're very fun and gregarious, and they love being in the limelight, and they love sharing, and they love interacting, and they really love sharing what people are talking about. And it's cool to see it happening in social media and transitioning into traditional media as well. It's really fun to see.
Yeah, and I notice it, I don't know if you're all on Google Plus or you're aware of what's going on Google Plus, but I see it there as well. People will say, oh, it's Google. It's this big thing, but it's being driven by human nature. They've been able to capture how we communicate or how we can communicate or should communicate, and they're being able to transfer it into this big thing, because you can't just post something. You've got to make a comment about it for it to go anywhere. And now they have these hangouts, which gives everybody the ability to talk and share whatever it is. They have the ability to do it. And everybody has a voice. And you're so right, because that's exactly the direction. And I love all of that. I love the fact that we could do this and that it's out there for everybody. I'm grateful that Amnon's been my friend and colleague for years and gave me the ability to do this. And everybody can do it. Everybody. And bringing people together is the ticket. I want to also invite anybody, call in. Please, 919-518-9773. If you can call on that number. And if you can't, you're in New Zealand or China, India, we got that covered for you too. Computers, that's plural, 2K Voice. You're welcome to call us on Skype and share anything that you would like. And we do have a question on the chat, and this is for Shawne, and I'm going to read it the best of my ability. I have a question for Shawne. Okay, I wonder how stuffing it is addressed for people who are doing things which impact themselves so negatively. Is addressing the emotions what you are talking about? Yeah.
It's feeling the emotions. So here I am. I'm at, let's say in business, someone walks up to me and I step on their toe and I'm so embarrassed because I'm feeling uncomfortable in the moment. In that moment, allowing myself to simply feel embarrassed and then feel really stupid, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just stepped on this person's toe. Okay. Mm-hmm. Get over it, Shawne. You stepped on his toe. It's not that deep. It's like that simple. That might happen in 3 seconds in the moment. Or maybe you're at a dinner celebration in your country and your husband says something out loud that you never wanted said out loud. How do you deal with it in the moment? Discomfort. Maybe anger comes up. Yeah, I'm really angry in this moment. Yeah, I got that. And right now would not be an appropriate time to deal with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to table it and come back to it when it's appropriate to talk to my husband about it, because the truth is I really love him, and knowing him, I know he didn't do this on purpose, chances are. So let me just table it and go back to this event, and I can be with it in the moment. And one of the reasons I like talking about this, because I really apply it to this concept of accepting the apology you'll never receive and managing the emotions internally when it's happening. Can I use an example real quick, Marilyn?
Absolutely. I love what you just said. Go right ahead.
Okay, perfect. So I have this neighbor that drives me frickin' nuts, okay?
Is this a true story?
This is a true story. Okay, good. Pinky swear. Every time I see him, I feel annoyed, okay? And annoyed, anytime you're not feeling love towards someone, you're in fear mode. I really believe you have two choices, love and fear at any given moment. And I'm always trying to get to this love space, to be in this love space. So every time I see him, he'll come out and I'll walk outside and he'll say, "Good morning, Shawne." And here it is, 6 p.m. at night. And I'll be like, good morning. Like, what do you mean? Well, you look like you just got up out of bed, like annoyed through my whole body, okay? So being in this annoyance with him, regularly, on a regular basis, I notice that I'm not generally an annoyed person. I'm pretty happy most of the time. Of course I'm going to get annoyed. But in this man's perspective, I am probably just like this meanest lady who's annoyed and angry all the time. He doesn't really know me except as this annoyed lady every time he talks to me. And I thought, wow, Shawne, because I teach this principle of accepting the apology you'll never receive. What if this neighbor could actually say out loud what's really going on? And he would say, "Shawne, I'm so sorry. I really want to fit in. I really want people to love me. And I just don't have the social skills. Right. I never learned them. I'm awkward in social situations. Most of the neighborhood thinks I'm a complete weirdo because I don't have social skills. You've seen it over and over again. And I just really want you to love me and be friends with me. And would you just forgive me for saying really dumb things most of the time? And my answer would be, of course. And when I can go to that space of giving up the annoyance and going to that compassionate place of accepting the apology I'll never receive, because he's not going to say that to me, I actually shift with him. And I can be loving to him. Mm-hmm. And I can be kind. And he just did some snow blowing on my driveway. My husband was out of town on a Buddhist retreat. So it's working. How's that? I'm getting more and more loving with him. Doesn't mean that all this is going to go away, that all of a sudden you forgive and you're wonderful. No, you're always growing, always forgiving, always looking at different ways to master this notion of forgiveness.
Right. Well, you know what? I think I also agree with you. There's two things, fear and love. And I call them the fear tree and the love tree. And all the branches that are on the love tree are like care, compassion, joy, all those things. And all the other things are on the fear tree, anger, irritation. And so it's your choice. And what she's just said is extraordinary because of her way of being, there is hope for this man. And he may really want to say those things. He probably does. People, for the most part, want to do good. I mean, there are people out there that, are really, really sick to their wherever. But for the most part, down to their core, down to their soul, they really want to do good. And she's talking to the part, that's the part you want to talk to. In your forgiveness and in your love and in your compassion, you want to talk to the part of that person who can hear you. That piece, their soul that's in there. And there was a book written many years ago by a gentleman I really respect. I'm a mediator. I did a lot of mediations and never really loved conflict, but that's why I did mediations, was to get people to understand each other. And that's part of forgiveness. It's understanding them. They may have done something they really didn't want to do, but the name of the book was Mediating Dangerously. So it was paying attention to the part that was deep down inside. That's the part you spoke to. You didn't speak to the wall that you saw, the fear that you saw, the face that you saw. You spoke beyond that. And that's where you want to go with your forgiveness, because that's where people are really. And so that kind of brings me into this piece of wanting to talk about spirituality some. I love talking about energy and people's, the spirituality of things, because that's a chunk of where we have to go. And I do also, at some point, Shawne, don't want to forget about talking about leadership in forgiveness as well, and with both of you, because I think that leaders have to forgive themselves, because they're the experiment and they're putting themselves out there and they're going to flop. And we're all leaders in this. We're all leaders in the forgiveness train. So I want to talk about all of these things. So we're not going to leave this show without talking about these things. So Dean, when we talk about spirituality and forgiveness, what's your connection to it?
Well, I've been primarily involved in Christian circles, so that obviously sort of carries its own bias, if you like. And Jesus, spoke a lot about forgiveness. And but having said that, in Fiji and in places in the East where I've worked a lot in Hindu and Muslim cultures, I find the problem to be universal. But to answer your question, I believe that we are a spirit, and so we have to, and our spirit can become polluted, it can become broken, we can be spiritually dead, spiritually alive, and in the case of forgiveness, I believe that when we harbor unforgiveness, whether it's intentional or not, it actually cuts us off from our connection with God in whatever space we would call that, is that it prevents us from communicating with him, and especially in a Christian environment, that is very specifically what the Bible says, is that God's not going to forgive you unless you forgive your brother. And that can sound very sort of judgmental and patriarchal, but I believe it's just because it damages us, as we've already been talking about for this time already, is that we're the ones who get hurt when we don't forgive. So I think it's impossible to separate being emotionally well from being spiritually well. And we may technically think that those are slightly different things, in that I would say we have a spirit and a soul, and our emotions tend to reside in our soul. But the end result is the same. We damage the very core of our being when we can't get to a place of rest and to a place of peace. And that's impossible without being able to forgive.
Absolutely.
And just while I'm on that subject, as I said earlier, one of the things I do a great deal is getting people to a place of being able to forgive God. And that's and I'm not necessarily talking about the Judeo-Christian God, but God as you find him. You know, who do you blame when your daughter dies in a car accident? Who do you blame when you or somebody that you love's been raped or murdered, and those sorts of things? And I've worked with many people in that space. And if they believe in a higher power, often the biggest struggle of their lives is being able to forgive that higher power for not protecting them or changing the circumstances. And that's quite a journey, but it's an absolutely critical one.
Yep. Well, it reminds me of the book, Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People? I mean, can't think of a better title than that. So thank you for that, Dean. Shawne, what are your thoughts about
I just love what Dean said.
Yes.
And, you know, from our foundation standpoint, we are non-religious, we are non-partisan. So I'm getting pretty darn good at like pulling out my own beliefs around spirituality. And so I always go back to the spirituality of kindness. And even when we were talking about my neighbor, you know, like making a difference for him because I'm accepting the apology that I didn't receive. And actually, what if in this conversation, my neighbor was the one teaching me the lesson? Yes. So many times things happen to us and it has nothing to do whatsoever with the other person, because I really cemented and went to another level of spiritual maturity in noticing and how I was being with others. And that when I'm annoyed with someone, that I can come across as that angry, mean, I call them mean mom face, you know, and getting more and more aware, because whether you believe in Allah, God, Buddha, Jesus, goddesses, whatever your belief system is, I really see that there's this thread of kindness, there's this thread of love, and it's really about remembering who we are, that our Creator, if you believe in a Creator, actually made us this way. To me, it's a remembering of who you are, and who we are, darn right, period, bottom line, is love. Yep. It's just, that's what it is, bottom line. And I think things happen for us so we can grow up. You know, things aren't happening to us. I really, really have seen this over and over again. Things happen for us, and we're really here to fall in love. You know, like working a lot in the diversity realm, seeing hate crimes or issues between black and white folks, particularly here in the U.S. or in South Africa, that, you know what, if we weren't learning how to love each other and accept each other and collaborate and see each other's beautiful souls, what else would we do? Like, truly. It would be great if there was never any war, if we never disagreed. And maybe part of the plan, and I don't know this, and I'm not saying it to be controversial, maybe part of the plan is to get together and collaborate on immigration issues. Maybe it's to get together and figure out, can you love someone even though you're morally opposed to gay rights? Maybe that your journey is to actually respect someone, because respect is a type of love. You don't have to agree with them. Who cares if you agree? And can you be respectful and honoring of someone else's choices? And I've mentioned earlier that I have a gay child. And I'm not a gay rights activist. I'm a people activist. My mother is a deeply born-again Christian, and she truly, deeply believes that gay marriage is not an option and that it's a violation against God. Whether I believe that or agree with her or not, I so deeply, deeply honor her beliefs. They're so important to her. They're her experience. It's her journey. And I love that I can be at this place in my life that I don't have that kind of judgment about that. I remember, 10, 15 years ago, I'm like, come on, you got a gay grandchild. Get over it. It's not like that anymore. I so honor and respect her for what she believes. We all are honored for our beliefs. And it's so personal.
Yeah, it is. And I appreciate what you're both saying, because if I know you're all listening to this as I am, with both my ears glued, and you realize that it's a journey, and to forgive wherever you are in the journey, so that you're allowed to keep on, so you allow yourself the opportunity to keep on going, because you're going to have things along the way, and everything that you have along the way is part of that lesson on that journey. There are no mistakes, only a lesson. And the more we share our personal lessons, I love to, share my yuck, because my yuck might help somebody else get through their yuck. We have a phone call, so I want to welcome him. Hello.
Hi there.
And who is this?
Hi, Marilyn. It's Andy.
Andy, how are you?
Very well, thanks. Yeah, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. So Andy interviewed you, Shawne, in the UK.
Andy from Southampton.
I thought I'd jump in and say hello, just because I've been speaking with Marilyn and I heard you were on today. So.
Oh, how beautiful. It's nice to hear your voice, love. We did a beautiful event and a great workshop in London and Southampton.
So what did you do there, Shawne?
We did a workshop on the sacredness of forgiveness. And what does that internal journey, what might it look like? And it was a lovely, lovely event. And it was a fundraiser for the foundation and to finish the movie. Terrific. It was a great event. Great.
And Andy, you interviewed Shawne for this event?
Yeah, I interviewed Shawne about her work as well, and it's a real pleasure to. I mean, I was listening in before I connected with you guys earlier, and it's great to hear some of the stories and some of the things that people go through in order to undergo this process of forgiveness. Yeah, it's interesting. So.
Well, worth it. Well, it's really nice to have you here. So is there anything you want to share with Shawne, or ask her, or tell her?
No, just it's a pleasure to connect with you again, and always keeping in touch with your work, and yeah, keep it up. It's amazing.
It's Did you say it's magic?
Yeah, it's great. It's fantastic. I mean, the day that Shawne was over was very, very personal for people, and I think it's can be a difficult subject to tackle at times, and I think prior to going to one of the workshops, some people may have felt quite anxious about having to tackle some of the things that they've had to have gone through in life, and it was very well done by Shawne when she came over and did it, so very good.
Wow.
Thank you.
So when you said magic, can you just describe to me what that means when you're talking about forgiveness? What did you mean by that? Because I loved how you said that, and I want to know what's magical.
Oh, well, I think it's interesting. I think as we grow up, we have certain beliefs, like Shawne was saying earlier, and throughout lives, our beliefs change due to circumstances or the experiences that we go through. And I think as soon as you have a shift in belief, that can change so many things. And I think that relates to forgiveness so much, because I wouldn't have been so open-minded if I hadn't have gone through some of the experiences I've gone through, and now I can truly relate to some other people that have faced the same things.
Yeah,
that's the real magic of it. Really.
That's very well put, and it is magic, because it's the feeling that you get when you've gone from maybe that storming anger to that moment of forgiveness. There is a magic between there. There's a feeling of lightness, a feeling of like you're flying. When you finally reach a point where you can forgive somebody, or in that journey of forgiveness, or as you forgive little by little, you begin to feel light and airy and just spatial. And that is a magical feeling. So I want to thank you very much for bringing that up, Andy.
Thanks.
Thank you. And thanks so much for being here. Shawne, did you have anything else to say to Andy, or is that good?
He was cool. Like what Dean mentioned about different cultures have different ways of dealing with stuff. And that event in Southampton was pretty raw from a Great Britain standpoint. It was very vulnerable. There was lots of tears. There was a lot of sharing. And I think what Andy was really meaning is that there was this really safe space to share with no judgment, to share and speak up, like Dean, how you talked about New Zealand as well. Like, it's to have those emotions and actually express them, because I would assert possibly that Great Britain is very similar to you in your British background and history about what's appropriate to share and not, because culture is we just generate those conversations, right? And I think the magic he was talking about was the vulnerability, the ability to share without judgment and just a safe space.
Perfect.
He's great people, too.
Great. Well, thank you. And I appreciate Andy for coming on. Andy and I have been chatting on and off a bit and when he asked me what kind of shows I was doing, and I happened to mention this one, he said, I know her. So how perfect is that he had the opportunity to come on and just share a bit of his experience. So I want to thank him for that. So we are coming down to almost towards the end, but so we've touched upon several different areas, but all obviously under the container of forgiveness. And there is ongoing, obviously, so much we can talk about. But one of the areas that I want to touch upon is leadership, because it's something that I'm very passionate about, that we all access, or however many people access their leadership quality, capabilities, and are free to do so, including children and teens and so forth. And I have a saying that you are a leader when you lead leaders. That's what a true leader can get to do, is that they're leading leaders, and we are out there on that skinny branch at all times. And so I know that Shawne mentioned leadership, and I want to find out with Dean as well, because, as a somebody in a culture, as we're talking about, where a culture is not as upfront about something, he's a leader in his right as well, because he's standing out there saying, here, look at this. This is something we need to look at. Even though we've been doing something a certain way already, here's another way of looking at it. So it does take that thing. And when you bring up that thing, no matter where it is, you're a leader. And it's extraordinary and it's important. So I want to ask Shawne, first, just talk to us some about how you blend the two and what you do with it.
I would say it's a perfect example of what both Dean and I are doing. Their experiences. They're vulnerable. They share what they face. They share incest. They share being in jail, like Dean shared that. We share stories of getting really annoyed at our neighbors. Wow, somebody with my background sharing so ostentatiously that I'm not perfect. That's what leaders do. And leaders also, in this conversation, they're I don't want to say quick to apologize. They're in velocity mode to take responsibility. And like modeling, oh my gosh, I just said that. Would you forgive me? I'm really sorry. No drama, no whatever. You just start modeling it. You start doing it. And even in this realm of forgiveness, what real leaders do in this conversation is they appreciate and validate people. Because in this realm of forgiveness, people just want to be loved. We all just want to be loved and loved back. And one of the clearest, strongest ways, especially in research, to love someone is to genuinely and authentically appreciate them. And leaders have that top of mind, like, oh my gosh, what a great smile you have, or even just being in that playful spirit that actually lightens up the moment, in that moment, and being charming and authentic and charismatic. That to me is what leadership is, and that's what even fosters forgiveness. Because in that realm, it's so authentic, it's so present, and forgiveness is fostered in leadership in the present moment.
Mm. Yep. And you know what's so great about what she just said is that I could feel it right in my heart. What she said has so much truth to it, because I can I'm very often remembered of how I sit up in front of a room and I might start to say something that isn't the way I want to say it. It just comes out, I don't stop myself. It just comes, and I'll often go, oops, I didn't want to say that, but I do it in the moment, and I will acknowledge. And so what she's saying is exactly what we all do, and that's okay with everything you do. There's healthy excuses, and there's healthy ways of acknowledging our oops, I call them. And I like to talk about our oops, and I like to toot our horns, because we all have to do that as a leader and as being out there in whatever we do, and allow ourselves that opportunity. So, Dean, what's your take?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think people are exhausted by the need to perform and look good. And we've talked a little bit about culture, and I noticed that so much in America that compared with New Zealand, people wouldn't even go and collect their mail unless they had heels and their makeup on. And so this whole performance-driven life is just exhausting, and I think authentic leadership is, as Shawne's already said, the ability to accept people, and in my experience in some business settings, I remember it was a few years ago now, I took over a branch of a company, and it was performing very, very badly, small team of people, and I simply sat down, let them talk, listened to them, found out where their hearts were at, what they were good and bad at, and I turned that branch around. It became the highest performing branch in Australasia just by accepting the people and letting them do what they were good at. So I think that as it relates to forgiveness, it's not really so much a very narrow topic in that regard. When it comes to leadership, it's literally accepting people, looking for the best in them. People want to follow somebody who they think actually cares about them and is trying to inspire them. So the more you judge them and try and drive a performance stake through their heart, you actually undermine the very thing that you're trying to achieve. So, being vulnerable and letting people fail would probably, if I had to come up with one statement, actually letting people fail and that being okay is the path to leading people successfully.
Perfectly said. And I so agree, Dean. We're all so exhausted of having to look that way, doing this thing, and it's so, and I really, for our children's sake as well, just to be able to accept this notion and be able and to grab hold of something that helps you move past it, so that we all can heal, and that's where the power. And Shawne, you said something earlier about, and I can't remember exactly what it was. I just knew how I felt. But this is where the power is, in how we can heal as a human race, and where we won't need to be in controlling and this and that. But this is when we will truly love each other, is when we don't make it so complicated, when we just reach out and acknowledge our this or that, what we said here, what we did here, how we didn't look great here, how we didn't look great there, whatever it is. This is where we go in accepting ourselves and each other for however we turn out, because we are the best there is, and we're doing the best we possibly can. And I love how Dean and Shawne have explained this topic, which can be so easy and complicated at the same time, and so profound. So I want to thank you both so much. Shawne, I know you have something, I feel like there's something else that you have on the top of your tongue.
You know what? I just want people to get involved with Project Forgive. Come hang out with us on Facebook. Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah, perfect
Come
timing.
hang with us. Yeah, we're rocking on Facebook.
We're rocking
it's
right
so
there.
Fun. Yeah, Facebook is rocking. We're always raising funds. We're finishing a movie. We're 50% done. We've already been endorsed by Archbishop Desmond Tutu and country artist Naomi Judd. It's like, it's in the realm of like, are you kidding me? Pinch me. That's where we're at. And if you're inspired to give back to us, we're a 501c3, and I am shameless in asking for support philanthropically. We're at supportprojectforgive.com. Share a story, share a pledge, share about our project, and of course watch for the movie, because the movie's 50% done.
And that's wonderful, and I want to just tailgate that by saying the movie is fabulous. And I watched it and posted it everywhere, so you can see it on all of my stuff, but also certainly on her website, on Shawne's website. It's great because it's the story of this family, and this man is telling the story of his family. I don't want to go into it, but and how his family was killed, and the connection between Shawne and this man and the person who, made a mistake, is all in this story. And it's fabulous in how things work out. And that is such a big part of forgiveness, because you just never know. You just never know what will happen 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road. You just never know. And forgiveness is a perfect place to put your hat. It's a perfect place to open up your heart. So do share, go check her stuff out. It's fabulous. And, write us about what you find, because we'd love to hear how things are going for you in this as well, and what you've connected with. Dean, what about you?
Well, I'm shameless about the importance of forgiveness. And so if you're, I would just say, look, if you're struggling in that area, or you'd like some more information or just help, you want to ask me a question, just look me up on Facebook. I know it's a bit counter to particularly US culture, but I haven't tried to build an empire around this. I just want to try and help people get free. So just look up Forgiveness Guy on Facebook. You can find me there. You can message me directly and post on the wall there. And there's a very active community there, and seen a lot of people get free from various things. And if I had one thing I wanted to say quickly before we went, I just want to say that my observation of our culture, there's many things that we've touched on. They really are all wrapped up in our fear of being known and getting close to another person. And I think we live in a generation where we are becoming orphans, and we are afraid of each other. And the path to really living this life of love and seeing, human culture come closer together is to be willing to push past those boundaries. And in America, I know it's hard. I found in America, even in churches, people are not friendly. You don't get invited home. People are just, afraid. And we really need to tackle that fear head on, because we're wired to be intimately related to each other. And that'll only happen if we choose to make it happen.
Yep. I couldn't have said that better myself. I think that's part of what we like to see here, is we like to build bridges. We want to see people connect. We want to, we want to bring those connections together, because the more united we are, the more we can do things. The more independent we feel, the more good we feel about ourselves, the more united we are. And that's one of the things that I know somebody said this earlier, where forgiveness bridges together. And it makes us more connected and more one, as opposed to keeping us apart. And that's so important. We must come together for everything we stand for. And I really honor the work of Shawne and Dean for how they're stepping out there and what they're doing and how they're doing it. So please connect with them shamelessly. No, I don't think so. I think when you're behind something as huge as this, and I feel the same way about what I do. When you are behind something as big as what they're doing, there is no nothing. It is just it. And you just love everything that you do, because you know what you're doing is going to impact the masses. And whether it's a person at a time, a street at a time, a school at a time, a business at a time, it doesn't matter, as long as we understand what we're doing. And what we're doing is bringing people together so that we can love each other and get past all this other caca stuff. So I want to thank everybody for being here. We have show notes that we will take from here, and we will put them on our websites. So it'll, again, have all their information. If you ever need to reconnect and you don't know how to, I am available always to connect anybody to anybody that I can connect them with. Click above my head. Let me know what I can do to help you to reach out and take your stories. And I wanted to go into that sacred thing, but we didn't. But your stories are sacred. And value them, honor them for what they are, for who you are in those stories, and for who those other players are, because we're all there for a reason. And Shawne, one more word, anything you want to share.
I just love you. That's it.
Thank you, and I love you too. And thank you. I feel like I've known you forever. And Dean, any final word from you?
No, it's been great. It's just been an honour to be able to share and to meet you all. It's been great.
Oh, and Andy, any final word from you?
I just want to say thanks. It's been a pleasure to listen and speak to you all this evening as well.
Well, thank you, Andy. It's an honor to know you as well, and for you to take the time to come here. And everybody out there, thank you for sharing your time with us today. I know that it's special, and you value your time, and I value your time. So thank you for being here today, and take this out in that world of yours, of mine, and let me know what happened. I'd love to hear it. And Shawne and Dean, thank you so very much for being here. It's been an honor. Everybody have a wonderful week. And from my heart to yours, and from one country to another. Thank you.
Right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Health In with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, and if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by ThatVidBlasterGuy.com, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.